Hey there YouTubers, Dan Strong with Excel VBA is fun. We have another fun challenge. We have another question. This question is basically, this gentleman has a few user forms in his table, and he has multiple list boxes here. And what he wants it to do is whenever you choose a company name from the drop down box, in fact let's go ahead and hit F5, when he chooses, let's say, ABC Company, he wants it to pull. This is his invoice database, which is just a sample, of course. But let's say he wants this customer name thing to be filled out with all the customers. But whenever he clicks on one of the customers, I believe he wants it to automatically generate the invoice numbers and the categories that are associated with those. Now, not only that, I think maybe even before that, he wants it to compare that with his payment database to see which ones of these are already paid. And so the only really ones that'll show up on that user form are the ones that have an outstanding balance that still owe him or his company money. So let's get started. What we need to do is just take it one bite at a time and not, you can't get overwhelmed with a whole bunch of stuff. Basically what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to generate a loop that's going to go through this stuff, and it'll analyze if the company, first of all, is the same company as the one that you clicked on that user form. That's important. And then eventually it'll do the same on this payment database. But one bite at a time, I say, is the best policy. So you'll need this column really, and you'll focus on the customer name column, and then column G for the amount, and then you can do some addition. You may also, if you want to take a little more time, is the macro would run faster if you use a VBA or a regular function that is like a SUMIF or a SUMIFS to see if it's ABC Company and John Smith, to compare like the total that John Smith, let's say you had like 100,000 cells, or rows rather, you would want to use a SUMIF or SUMIFS. In this case, we don't need to. We'll just loop through it, and it should be very, very, very fast. So let's get started. We're going to put a click event on this, so double click, and the company name input underscore change. So whenever that's changed to a different company, that's when it's going to run this, and it's going to update the user forms. Now let's just go ahead and take a look here at what those things names. Hit F4 if you're missing that. This is called customer name list, invoice, number list, and category list. I'm not going to write that down. I should, but I'm not going to. So first thing we're focusing on is the customer name list. So that's fine. Double click here. So we're going to search both databases for unpaid clients. Okay. Or outstanding balances, whatever. So the first thing we're going to do is search invoice database, and then later we can, I guess with each one we need to kind of compare that with the payment sheet. So let's get started. Yeah, we are going to have to use the stinking SUMIF. That would take forever. Actually, kind of thinking ahead here, to eliminate duplicates, we should probably search through that list box, the very first one, and just make sure that this customer's name doesn't already appear there. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's get the last row in the invoice sheet. So I'm going to say invoice database last row is this workbook dot sheets invoice database, and here comes the fun part, dot cells rows dot count using column 1 dot end using xlup.row. That's your last row. Alright. And we're going to use a for next loop. So for x is going to be equal to, starting with row 1 all the way to our last row, idlr. And then we're going to say next x. So now we have a good loop here. So we really need to declare this worksheet. So I'm tired of typing all that out. So we're going to declare ID ID sheet. It's going to be as our worksheet. We're going to declare P sheet as another worksheet. And then we'll set them up. Set ID sheet equals this mess right here is what it is, really. Let's do that. Set ID sheet equals this. Set P sheet equals payment database. There we go. So those are set up. So I'm just going to get in the habit here. ID sheet dot cells. That's the correct sheet. So now ID sheet dot cells so row X, and we need to take a look at row X would be 2 for starters, and we need to look at column 3, which is the company name. So 3, and we're going to say if that is equal to me dot, and what is that? Let's see, what's the combo box named? Me dot company name input. If that is equal to me dot company name input, then we need to do something. Okay, well, let's just see where we are now. Hit F8. So there's the okay, the user form has to do its thing. So where are we at? Okay. Looks like they already found it on row 2. It is ABC Company. So now we have basically, we've got the right thing here. We need to see if John Smith is already in our customer list there. So, and that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Column 5, help me remember that. So now we're going to loop through the list box to see if customer is there already. If not, check the payment sheet to see if in default or something, see if they're in default. Okay, so let's do that now. We'll use another for loop for B equals. We'll use L bound and U bound. That's the lower boundaries of the list box and the upper boundaries of the list box. So equals L bound. And what the heck is that list box called? Customer name list. Alright, let's go back. Me.customer name list. All the way to the U bound of the same me.customer name list. And it may need to put dot list. I don't remember. So, and then next B. Let's see how that does. So if it gives us an error, we know we need to use the dot list. Let's hit F5. Yep, they don't like that. Or it might be .list index. I'm not really sure. Let's see. Been a while. Yeah, they don't like that. Me.customer name list dot. I don't know, list count. Let's try that. Expected array. So if the list count is less than 0, then I don't know. How about if it's greater than or equal to 0? Then we'll continue. Otherwise, we need to probably skip over that. Let's see. Dang it. Stop that. Okay. Let's go back here. Maybe that will work. Let's find out. Ah, you dirtbag. Find list index. I always get those two confused. I shouldn't. Okay. If me.customer name list count is, and it is 0. So if it's greater than 0, meaning it has anything in it at all, then we want to go ahead and continue. Right now it doesn't have anything in it, so the list count is 0. Okay. Yep. Let's see. And we said, so now we need to take, so for sure their name is not in that list box, but we still need to do some comparison. So compare this person's total to the payment sheet. So we need to get this person's total actually. And we can do that. We can do that with a loop, or we can probably, best thing to do is use a stinking SUMIF. Alright. Let's just call it current sum is equal to, and we'll use application.worksheet function.SUMIF, and we might use SUMIFs actually. It's Depends on how many criteria we want to use. We probably need to use the company name is ABC Company and the customer name is John Smith. So that would be some ifs. Let's use that. So let's see. The argument 1 is the range. Then you're going to have argument 2 as a range and argument 3. Let's look at the syntax of an actual sum ifs. So sum range, criteria range 1, and criteria 1. Okay, so what's our sum range is G right here. So we got to give our sum range first, and that would be the ID sheet dot range, and that is G2 all the way through G, and in the quote we're going to combine that with a dynamic thing, which is the IDLR. That's our last row. So the range is actually G2 through G, whatever the heck the last row is. Now we put a comma. Now we need to use what is our range for our first criteria. And that would be, I would say, column C. So we'll say ID sheet dot range, and that's going to be the same concept, C2 through C, and our last row. And I'm going to zoom over here. Now, what's our criteria for that? It's going to be ABC Company, but we don't want to hard code that, so we're going to say ID sheet dot cells, and that is row X, and that is column 3. That's our criteria. Now the next range slash criteria is going to be, we'll copy and paste this good stuff right here. We're actually going to be using column E for our next range and criteria, so we'll say E2 through E whatever. And we'll say that we want column 5 as our criteria, which would be John Smith in the current row of X. And of course we already told that the sum range is right here, is what we're needing. So that should give us John Smith's total, as long as he's the John Smith in ABC Company, that is, in this here. So let's in parentheses that. Let's go up a little bit. Our current sum for our current dude here is 20,000, which is correct, because we don't have any other John Smiths. If we had, it may increase that number. So current sum, let's just call that current invoice. And then we can pull that same trick, maybe even copy and paste a little stuff here for the P sheet stuff. So let's see what John Smith's situation is. P sheet. So what do we have here? We have a sum range, and we have company name and customer name. So that's good. Let's say current payment, and that's of course the total, is going to be equal to blah blah blah. Copy all this good stuff here. And yes, you can make this on multiple lines. Probably should. But I've had limited problems with that. So for the time being, I will just zoom around a little bit. This is psheet.range. On the P sheet, it is actually F. We see above here. It is F, and we do need a P sheet's last row. So let's go ahead and get that up at the top. P, last row, it's going to be equal to, and let's copy and paste all this, and we'll just tweak it a little bit. P, last row, is equal to P sheet dot blah blah blah. Yep, that's good. So that's already settled then, isn't it? PLR. So we need F2 through and the last row for P, the P sheet, because F is our sum total there. Now we're going to say P sheet, and what's our next criteria? Our criteria was, our criteria range would be column B in this instance, and using the P sheet's last row, and then of course P sheet. No, that's actually correct. This is still what we're trying to compare, is on ID sheet and in row X, column 3, and all that stuff. That's correct. It's still the same stuff we're comparing. Now, as for this thing right here, this is going to be column C. This is the customer name part. So psheet.range. That is C through C, and that's the P sheet's last row. And then, of course, the criteria of being John Smith is still correct. So let's go up and backtrack just a smidge. Okay, now we're getting the last row for there, which is just row 3. Let's loop through here a little bit. ABC company is, yes, it's the same. So the current dude is John Smith, and his current amount is $20,000. The current payment is 0. So John Smith has not made any payments. Let's do a little quick math here, okay? So, whoops, let's hit tab. So we're going to say current invoice. Let's see, what do we want to know is the balance. Balance equals current invoice minus current payment. So let's see what his balance is. I'm going to say his balance is that he owes $20,000. And yes, so if the balance is $20,000 right now, we could say if balance is greater than or equal to 0, or I don't know. If balance is greater than 0, then need to be added to Listbox. So let's do that. Add them to a Listbox. Let's go back up here. We see that the balance is 20,000, right? Is balance greater than 0? Yes. So then it's going to pop up here. So let's add them to the Listbox. What was the Listbox called? Me.customer name list, I guess. Yeah. Customer name list dot add item. What are we going to add? What's their customer name? It is ID sheet dot cells x comma, what the heck was it? ID sheet is right here. X comma, that's the company name. Customer name was on column 5. So 5. That's the item we're adding, is that customer name. So hit F8, and at this point we have now added that item. Let's hit F8 and go to the next X, just for fun. So ID sheet, ABC company for row 3, it's still the same company, right? So let's do this. If me.customer name list dot list count is greater than 0, and it sure is, then we want to get the L bound of the me.customer name list. We don't want the dot list index. Can we use the dot list? I thought it was dot list. I don't know why they're giving me crap about it. Okay, whatever. So for B is equal to the lower boundary to all the way to the U bound. So let's see here. So we're going to loop through each one. In this case, there's only one entry. We're going to find out and make sure that they're not this new entry. If Jane Smith is already on the list, well, then we're just going to probably just go to the next X and skip that record, because we don't need to keep on adding Jane Smith if we already know she's on there. So let's do this. We're going to say, what are we going to say? If me.customer name list dot dot list me, let's see, B comma 0, because they don't do column 1 as column 1, it would be 0 is that. I don't know why. So if that row, the current one is B, and the column is 0 because it starts 0, 1, 2 instead of 1, 2, 3. If that is equal to id sheet dot cells x comma well, E is 5, then stop, end if. So let's just loop. Let's see what that does here. Oh, heck yeah. So it worked. The first one in the list is John Smith. Is that equal to our current one, Jane Smith? No, it isn't. If we ever have a match, then we would, I guess, continue. So, if we ever had a match, we would go to next x, and we will create a new little thing here called next x, and use our little colon there. And that way, if there was ever an occurrence where there was a duplicate entry, we wouldn't want to relist them. So we would go through there, but no, Jane Smith is not equal to John Smith, which is already in the list box. So we will just keep on keeping on. So let's look up Jane's stuff here. The current invoice for Jane is $25,000 on the whole thing, and the current payment for Jane is $2,000. Oh wow, I didn't know that. Okay, look at there, $2,000, Jane Smith. How do you like that? That's pretty cool. So it looked it up for us. So the balance is going to be equal to what she is. Invoice 25,000 minus 2. So she still owes 23,000. That's her balance. So if the balance is greater than 0, it sure is, we're going to add Jane Smith. And now she has been added. So cool. It's doing really well here. ABC company, yes, that's correct. List count, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to go from 0 to 1 here. B is now 0. So we got John Smith. Is Luke McDonald John Smith? No. How about, is Luke McDonald Jane Smith? No. So move on. Let's see. Luke owes 10,000, has not made a payment. So add Luke. Bam. He is added. Who's the next person? We got Elizabeth Fairfield. Well, we already can tell you. Elizabeth, you are not on the list. So what do you owe? 10,000. Had not made a payment. Alright, you see where we're going with this? We just added Elizabeth. Alright, now we got Mary English. What does she owe? Mary English owes 30,000. Not a payment. No payment. Alright, so let's hit let's put a stop marker there in case one of these is a duplicate. We want to check that out. Hit F5. Okay, there was no duplicates. So we got John Smith, Jane, Luke McDonald, Elizabeth Fairfield, Mary English. Why did we stop there? Looks like there's more people there. Well, I'll tell you. Because as soon as we got through Mary English, the company was not a match. ABC company, right? So let's do that for XYZ company. Okay. What's going to happen is, because I forgot to put a clear thing, is it's probably just going to add all the XYZ company people to there. So the first person is named Tony Sabaro, and he owes 50,000. not made a payment, so who's going to be added to the list? So at the very beginning, let's put something like this. Clear last entry. And we're going to do that by saying me.customerNameList.clear. That'll do it. I'm going to hit F5, see what happens. So there's Tony Sabaro, he's the only one there. Now let's have a little fun here. Jane Smith, right? Okay, well, let's first of all go back here. I'll show you that it clears it out now. Okay, now let's have a little fun. John Smith, we're going to have him be paid off. Okay, John Smith is going to pay $20,000 right now. Let's go on the other sheet, payment database. Alright, let's do today's date. ABC company, John Smith, right? I don't care what the invoice number is for now, but he paid $20,000, which is all that he owed. So he is in the green, right? Let's see what happens now. We run this code. ABC company, notice John Smith is not on there, right? Because his balance is good. So we see that it's working. Now, if you wanted it to be like, if you click on one of these, that the invoice numbers pop up, and you can do payments to date and balance and things like this, you can use basically the code that we used earlier. You can use the same concept using the sum ifs. You can copy and paste the sum ifs really, and put a little label there. I think you already have a label there. So let's click on Jane Smith, and let's see what to do to put a click event on there. So double click on that list box, customer name list underscore click. So there's a click event. So when clicked, get invoice numbers and balance and yada yada. So let's just focus on a little bit of that, just the concept of how to get you started with that. So when they click on this, current customer is equal to me.customerNameList.value. See, if you had multiple columns, it'd be more tricky, but all you have to do is get the dot value for the value is wherever you clicked, and that's that would be the name in this case. So that's our current customer. So let's put a stop marker right there, and we'll do that. In fact, I'll take that off here. Okay, so the current customer, when I hit F8, is Jane Smith. That's our current value for the list box. And if you want to look up some things about Jane Smith, you might want to look up current invoice numbers to fill in the next list box. We'll show you very briefly how to do that and to get the categories as well. So you have the category list and invoice number list. Category list, invoice numbers list. Oh, here we go. So first you're going to fill the invoice number list, and at the same time you'll also use the category list. So when you find something, so we'll kind of be able to copy and paste some of this loops that we have going on here. Let's copy these two sheets that we're going to inevitably loop through. Put them in my immediate window here. Copy the row, the last row code here, and even getting started here on the loop here. Yeah, we'll just copy that here. Alright, let's take all this, Control C, and copy right here. See how far we got. Alright. So, current customer list. Our current customer is Jane Smith this time. Last row. To that. Okay, so we'll go through the invoice list and grab the invoice numbers that are current. So if, let's see. Yeah, we got to get the right company, but we also are going to say and ID sheet dot cells x comma 5 is equal to the current customer. So we have multiple criteria now. We can just join that with the AND word. So if ABC Company is equal to ABC Company and John Smith is equal to current customer Jane Smith, well, it's not the same right now. But let's just assume that they were. What would we want to do? We would want to get the invoice number. Let's go ahead and stop that code right now, which the invoice number would be column B. Okay, and then the category would be column F. So let's just keep that in mind here. I'm going to hit F5 on my keyboard, click on Jane Smith, and so we're going to go down to the bottom. So once we get a match, let's find out when we have a match is hit F5. Okay, we have a match on column 3 of all things. So yes, Jane Smith is on column or row 3, excuse me. So what are we going to do? First, we're going to fill the list boxes. Cool, let's do it. We're going to say me.customer. Oh shoot, what were they called? Invoice number list. Me.invoice number list. Dot add item. And what item are we going to add? You just put a space and then you tell it what you're going to add. We're going to add ID sheet dot cells row X, comma, looks like invoice numbers on B, which is column 2. And me dot what was the other one? Category list dot add item. And we're going to add the item which is in the ID sheet dot cells row X, comma, column F, which is 6. Okay, and if I hit F8, we've added invoice 002 and alarm installation to the respective list boxes. So I'm going to hit F5, and so again, what we need to do is at the beginning of this being clicked, we need to clear off some stuff. So we do that by saying me dot invoice number list dot clear, me dot category list dot clear. That being said, hit F5, click on Jane Smith. We'll go ahead and let this run. You got invoice number 2. If you click on Luke McDonald, is invoice number 3 and key lock installation. Elizabeth Fairfield is such and such, and Mary English, apparently there is no category. Let's double check that. That's correct. Mary English, there's no category listed. Let's change that to deck installation. So hit F5. So now when you click on Mary, you'll see that it's deck installation is the one. And again, John Smith is not on there because he is not outstanding balance. Now payments to date, you could do that with the sum ifs that we worked on. Pop that in a list box, and also the balance. So we can work on that here very briefly. Yeah, I mean we've already done that. So let's just copy some of that stuff over. So for the person that we're clicking on, let's say it was Jane Smith, which is the first one. I think she made a payment, didn't she? She paid like $2,000. Yeah, Jane Smith paid $2,000, so that should be pretty interesting. We will go up here and we're going to get some this current invoice stuff here and try to copy and paste some of that. And we'll see how that does. Control C to copy. Actually, I like all this balance stuff. It's just juicy. Just wonderful. So let's see if that is enough. It might not be. So, let's see. I think after we get all these people, that's when we're going to do this part. We're going to get balances for current customer. So paste here, current invoice Let's put a stop marker right there. See if that's all that we need. We might need more. But it looks like... Yeah, some of these things like the criteria would be current customer. Okay, let's just hit F5. See what happens. Click on Jane Smith. So current invoice for Jane. We're using the sum ifs. We are using G2 through G10 on the ID sheet. That's correct. Okay. So a lot of these things are correct. The range that we're using, however, I don't think that we're using this necessarily. I don't think we're using that. I think we're using whatever's the current combo box, which is me dot company name input. So that's going to be me dot company name input, and the same for the second one. So that's me dot company name input. That way it's consistent. It's not dependent on whatever loop that we're in. Then the next ranges should be accurate. We haven't added any weird columns or anything. Now, the thing about this is we're not looping through necessarily anymore, so we're just going to use current customer because we set up that nice little variable earlier to make it easier for us to refer to the current customer that we've clicked on in the list box. So that being said, the current invoice is $25,000 for Jane, and $2,000 is her current payment. So we have those two. Well, heck, what are they? Let's see. Payments to date is you can see it says payment total, and the balance is balance total. So let's get her payments to date. That should say 2,000, and the balance should say 25 less 2, so it should say 23,000 there. So we've already got all this information in. We just need to say payment total and balance total. Okay, so let's do this. All right. Me dot payment total equals current payment. That's the total payments that she's made, right? And then me dot balance total equals, I guess technically it would be this balance here. Let's go ahead and get that balance part done. Let's cut and paste it here. Control X and Control V to repaste. So the me.balance total, which is a label, equals balance. And we really don't care about all this because we already know that they're outstanding or delinquent, so we don't need to compare that any longer. That being said, let's go ahead and hit F5. I'm pretty sure we're going to get a pretty positive result here, but let's debug through. 25,000 is current invoice, 2,000 paid, balance would be the difference, 23,000 owed. So the current payment is going to be shoved on this right here. Let's do that. Hit F8, 2,000, and the balance is 23,000, which will go right here, 23,000. Now, let's make that prettier, okay? That equals, let's see, can you do dollar? Is that, no, it's not native. So we'll do this. Application dot, no, you could format it. You don't have to do that dot worksheet function dot dollar. You could just say format. I take it back. Dollar is easier. Application dot worksheet function dot dollar, and we're going to use current payment, of course, comma 2 decimal places. We'll do the same for the next one. Control C, Control V to paste, comma 2 decimal places in the dollar function. Now let's redo that. Just these last two. Now just watch right here. Hit F8, 2,000, and hit F8, 23,000. Looks a little prettier, doesn't it? Okay, So I'm gonna take off all stop markers and let Excel do its thing. Check this out. Oh, hit F5. There we go. Luke McDonald owes 10,000. No payments. Elizabeth, no payments. Mary, no payments. But we see that Jane has paid 2,000, so that's good. A little bit of effort there on her account. Let's go to the other companies. Tony Sparrow. Okay, so on the click event for this, or the change event, you notice that we probably need to clear these. That's something that we need to adjust now that we've gotten this far. So let's do that now. Double click here. We're going to say me dot balance total equals, blank that out, me dot payment total equals double quotes. That means blank. So I hit F5. Now when we click there, if I change this to a new company, it blanks that out. So that's pretty awesome. Let's say hi company. We really need to clear everything whenever we click on this too. Okay, fine. Going back to the drawing board here. We need to clear out everything. So me dot category list dot clear and me dot what the heck was that one? Me dot inv number list. Me dot invoice numbers list dot clear. And we've basically gotten that part solved. Now you can add a bunch more features, and it's just dependent on how much you want to play with it and tweak it. Let's see. Okay. There's so much customization you can do. But basically, that's what we have right here. Now, if you wanted to click on an invoice number and bring up just the invoice numbers, that's a whole other ballgame. In this case, I think he just wanted us to bring up the customers, and check out their balance. But that's how you do it. Boy, I'm glad we got through that, aren't you? Hey, thanks a lot for watching, and God bless.